I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I am also a big fan of fantasy. So what if the two were to combine? That's what Demon Lord 2099 is. The best of both worlds. First airing all the way back in October 2024, based on the light novels by Daigo Murasaki and Kureta, with Ryu Ando, assistant director of Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury, helming the adaptation. It is honestly one of the most interesting anime I've watched in the past few years. The visuals, animation, story, voice acting all combine to deliver something genuinely witty, funny, wholesome and heartfelt. A story that actually surprised me. Yeah, I thought I was gonna sit down, watch another generic isekai I forget about in a couple of days, but the amount of greatness hidden in this anime is something remarkable. And that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Why I enjoyed Demon Lord 2099 and why you should give it a chance. Now, first things first, I am not an anime expert by any means. I don't watch every single show out there, but I do love anime. I've been watching it for almost 20 years now, since I was a kid. And every now and then I like to give a random show a chance that I've heard nothing about. Maybe I watch a trailer, but that's it. This one caught my eye firstly because of the title, Demon Lord 2099. It just rolls off the tongue, unlike the paragraph length titles most isekai seem to come up with these days. I mean, what the hell is this? This one is short, punchy and memorable. And honestly, that's a green flag for me when I'm selecting what to watch next. It's not a foolproof guarantee that an anime will be great based on the title, but it's a pretty solid indicator that someone on the creative side actually thought of how a casual or Western viewer is going to encounter the thing for the first time. The packaging matters, and with good packaging, it often signals care in the product itself. Now, like everyone else, I do enjoy sub, and most of the time that's exactly how I watch it. But a truly great dub, that's superior to a great sub every time in my opinion. And I'm happy to report that this dub is fantastic. Notable names for the dub include Sarah Wiedenhef, who voiced Power in the Chainsaw Man dub, and the legendary Ian Sinclair. You might know him as Brook from One Piece or Whis from Dragon Ball Super. The man has range and he uses all of it here. There's just something about hearing a character like Veltol, ancient, powerful, quietly dignified, delivered in a voice that can flip between dry authority and sarcastic remarks and make it both feel completely natural. Sinclair nails that balance. The dub doesn't feel like a translation, it feels like the original intent, just delivered in English. So, what's the story actually about? It starts about 500 years in the past. Immortals and mortals are waging in an all-out war against each other. The leader of the immortal army, the Demon Lord, and the savior of humanity, simply known as the hero, are about to clash in their final battle. And let me take a second here because the opening scenes looks like an anime movie. The budget is clearly high, which is interesting because it's made by JC Staff, the same studio that recently went viral for the animation quality of One Punch Man Season 3. But here though boy, they brought their A game. It's not Demon Slayer or JJK level, but it's just objectively gorgeous. The hero and the Demon Lord seem to share a mutual respect, even as enemies, and they fight. The hero wins, but what truly steals the scene is the dialogue that follows.
Take heed, hero, for wherever there is light, there must also be darkness. And as long as darkness remains, I shall appear before your light time and time again. You can't erase the invincible king.
So be it. I will face your darkness wherever it rears its head.
Fare thee well, my eternal sworn enemy, Hero Graham.
That exchange alone tells you everything about the tone the show is going for. There's no cheap villainy here, no cartoonish evil. Even from the very first scene, the show is telling you that these are complicated people in a complicated world, and the show expects you to sit with that. We then jump 500 years into the future, and the world our Demon Lord Veltol wanted to conquer just doesn't exist anymore. at least not in the form that he would recognize. A truce was formed between the races of the world. Now everyone lives in a cyberpunk-style city built on the ruins of what was formerly known as Shibuya. Grand magic is prohibited within the city limits. Speaking of magic, in this world it consists of 5 elements, and over the centuries they figured out how to combine 3 of those 5 using technology. So now everyday people can cast basic spells more easily than ever before through devices called familiar. What I like about this world building is that it doesn't feel like a dump. The show reveals the rules of this world naturally, through situations Veltol finds himself in, rather than explain everything in a lecture, and it makes the world feel lived in rather than constructed. Veltol was summoned back by a follower of his named Machina, a powerful mage in her own right, and here's a key detail the show introduces early. Veltol's power is directly tied to the number of followers he has, but right now, after getting beaten up by a random street thug, Veltol realizes just how far he has fallen. And things get worse when he runs into Marcus, one of his old emissaries, who has actually become a very powerful figure in this new world. See, Marcus helped develop the familiar device, and he makes it very clear that he has always resented Veltol. He always saw him as an entitled brat who didn't deserve his throne. That hits different when you've just lost a fight to a random thug. And then Machina reveals that she's barely getting by, working minimum wage just to survive. So Veltol, the once feared demon lord, makes the only logical decision available to him. He needs to get a job. Now that I say it out loud, the show is kind of like The Devil is a Part-Timer, set inside Cyberpunk 2077. Remember Devil is a Part-Timer? It's been like 3 years since season 2. If you know, you know. The tone is very similar, laid back, easy to watch, but with enough weight that the serious moments actually land. The pacing is tight, there's always a sense of forward momentum, of something building, and the characters feel real. Almost all of them have genuine depth. They have their own lives, their own agendas, their own baggage. It doesn't feel like everyone just exists to serve the main character's arc. Take Machina for example. She is completely loyal to Veltol, not out of blind devotion, but because of something that happened in the past. He saved her life at a moment where she had already accepted death as a fate. That one act gave her purpose that she didn't think she'd ever have. Simple backstory effectively told, and it reframes every scene she is in. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough credit when people discuss anime, and that is tonal consistency. A lot of shows try to blend comedy with genuine drama and end up fumbling one or the other. Either the jokes undercut moments that should be emotional, or the drama feels jarringly out of place. It is a harder balance to strike than it looks, and most series don't get it right. The comedy never mocks the characters, it finds the humor in the situation. An ancient all-powerful being trying to navigate a job interview, haggling over a utility bill, processing the fact that the world moved on without him, without ever making Veltol the butt of the joke in a way that diminishes him. He is still formidable. The comedy comes from the contrast, not from humiliating him. And when the show decides to go serious, it earns it because the groundwork has been laid. You already care about these people, so when the stakes are raised, and they are raised, it actually means something. I also want to touch on the setting itself, because I think it deserves more praise than it typically gets in the conversation about this show. Cyberpunk as an aesthetic has been everywhere in the last few years. Games, films, anime. It can start to feel a little exhausting if it's not done with a fresh angle. What Demon Lord 2099 does is use Cyberpunk not just as a visual backdrop, but as a thematic tool. The technology layered over ancient magic, the corporations and class structures that have replaced the old kingdoms and armies, all of it reflects something Veltol has to actually grapple with. Power in this world does not look the way it used to. The old rules do not apply. And for a being who has built his entire identity around power, that is genuinely disorienting. The cyberpunk setting is pressure. It forces the main character to confront who he actually is when everything that defined him is stripped away, and that makes for a far more compelling protagonist overall. There's also just something inherently cool about watching a demon lord trying to take over a cyberpunk world setting, if I'm being honest. Another thing worth mentioning is the supporting cast, because the show does something that a lot of anime fail to do. It makes you interested in the characters who aren't the main character. We've already talked about Machina, but there are other figures in the story who feel like they have entire lives happening off screen. Characters who have clear motivations of their own. People navigating the same broken world that Veltol is navigating, just from different positions. That includes people who are quote-unquote on the wrong side of things. The show has enough moral nuance that you can understand why people made the choices that they made, even when these choices put them in conflict with Veltol. And the payoff is a story that feels textured and honest. Marcus, for instance, you could write him off as simply a traitor who turned on his old master, but the show gives you enough of his perspective that you start to understand the resentment. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it, and that distinction matters. So anyway, Veltol goes looking for a job, and from there, the show starts doing something genuinely clever with its premise. It manages to balance the comedy of a once all-powerful being navigating the modern life with a surprisingly layered story about power, identity, legacy, and what it means to rebuild yourself from nothing. The follower mechanic I mentioned earlier, the idea of Veltol's power that grows with the number of people that believe in him, turns out to be more than just a plot device. It becomes an emotional core of the show. Because what does it mean to earn loyalty rather than command it? What does it mean to be chosen rather than to be obeyed out of fear? Those are the questions that Demon Lord 2099 is genuinely interested in, and it explores them without getting preachy with it, without giving anything more away. The direction the story goes genuinely caught me off guard. There are moments here that are outright funny. There are moments that are unexpectedly moving. It earns its emotional beats, and if you give it just a couple of episodes, I think it will catch you off guard too. There's no shortage of anime to watch. The seasonal slate is always packed, but attention is finite. It can feel overwhelming trying to figure out what's actually worth your time. Demon Lord 2099 is worth your time.